All right, welcome back. I'm here with Baby Yoda today to talk about Star Wars, specifically Star Wars Jedi Survivor, the sequel to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, brought to you by EA and Respawn. Respawn, developer behind a lot of great games like Titanfall 2, Apex Legends, and these totally different types of games, the Star Wars Jedi games, which are basically Souls-likes. They are a mixture of the Dark Souls style combat and level design with a bunch of other games. Jedi Survivor makes me think of like a combination of Dark Souls, Zelda, Uncharted, Final Fantasy, Titanfall. It's just kind of this weird hybrid action RPG. It's really great. I really like this game. It takes everything that was great about Fallen Order and it sort of expands upon it. I'm going to get to a couple caveats and issues I have with the game in a minute, but first we'll just talk about what it does right. It basically takes a lot of the systems that were developed for Fallen Order and just expands on them and makes them bigger and better. You don't like reset your powers. Cal Kestis, the Jedi that you play in this game, he doesn't like have a hard reset where you have to learn everything again. You start out with all the good stuff that you finished the last game with your double jump and your wall running and all your force powers and everything like that. You already have your multiple. You have your two starting lightsaber stances. There's 5 in this game actually, and I'll just go over each one. You get them as you go, but you start out with the ones you finished with in the first game. You have the single blade, the basic, most common stance that you see Jedis using with their lightsabers. Then you have the double blade, which is the two blades put together into one two-handed like blade on either side. Then you have dual wielding now, which is 2 blades separated and used in both hands. This gives you a more aggressive stance, and then you have your 4th stance is blaster stance. You get a blaster which you use in one hand and your single blade in the other. It gives you a little bit more distance, ranged attacks. And it kind of combines the single blade style with just having a blaster. It's actually pretty fun. And then finally you have the Kylo Ren two-handed crossguard stance. And actually it's a funny thing about this stance. First of all, it's like wielding a two-handed claymore or something in Dark Souls. Heavy, slow attacks that stagger enemies and do a lot of damage. So combat is just more robust. You have many more options. Everything that you liked about Fallen Order is expanded upon. And it's the whole system. You lock onto targets, you use your force powers, you parry and block, you dodge, you try to stagger enemies by breaking down their stagger bar, and then you can deal more damage. You can use force powers to turn enemies against one another. You can push them off ledges. You can pull them towards you. There's just a lot of different ways to engage in combat, and that's really fun. What I find even more fun than the combat, though, is the platforming and exploration. The levels are intricately designed. There's all kinds of cool ways to get around them. You're going to be doing various combinations of double jump dash, wall run, grappling grab, zip lining, hopping from one zip line to another, unlocking shortcuts, using your force powers, there's just a ton of different combinations of how you're going to climb and jump and dive your way around these levels, and I find that part of this game super fun. It's just sometimes it's downright exhilarating. You're just there's levels where you can use you need to use the wind to get yourself to jump further, and it feels like you're flying sometimes. And this is where you start to feel like kind of like the Titanfall 2 influence on the game with all the wall running and stuff. So you take Titanfall 2 and you mix it with Uncharted, and you have all the climbing that you do in Uncharted starts to get a little tedious, but here you go from climbing to like zipping across this wide divide, running across multiple walls, double jumping up onto the next ledge and taking down some battle droids. There's a lot of battle droids like from the prequel movies in this game. You also have mounts. There's basically like the Star Wars equivalent of chocobos, and then other kinds of mounts, and there's little creatures that fly you from one place to another, and there's just a bunch of different options. There's more people to talk to, more NPCs, more side quests. You know, you there's a whole side quest about hunting down bounty hunters. The hunter becomes the hunted. You find lots of collectibles and customization options for Cal. You have a garden on the roof of the outpost, this Pyloon Saloon. You can, it's a much more expansive game where there's a lot more options to do optional content, customize, to explore, to meet people, to find out more lore. The story itself is, I think, more unique than the first game. It's not just as straightforward, like, running away from the Empire, fighting Inquisitors. This time there's this whole High Republic era backstory that you delve into, and I'm not going to give any of that away, but I think it's really interesting. The music's great, the graphics are beautiful, all told, just a really great game that just wasn't ready to release yet. And that's where we come to the biggest problem with this game. It's for the majority of the time I've been playing it, I've experienced a ton of performance issues on PC. Frame rate drops, cutscenes will kick in that will just devastate the frame rate afterwards, or in a big pitched battle with a lot of enemies, frame rates just go down through the floor. Beyond that, there's audio problems, voice lines overlapping each other, characters repeating themselves. I had a few crashes that made me repeat large sections of the game because there's not an autosave. You just save at the meditation points, like basically the bonfires of this game. And that's really frustrating. I at one point was like, if I have to do this section again, I'm just quitting. I'm not doing it anymore. I give up. There was a day one patch that seems to have helped my game's performance quite a bit. Frame rates have been much more stable. I haven't had any crashes. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better. But I know I've looked over Steam reviews and heard from other people that have said their game is still performing quite badly, and then other people who have had no problems at all. So it is a bit of a gamble, and so even though I recommend this game, I definitely recommend that you be careful getting this game, or that you make sure it's running okay before you're, on Steam you have, I think, 2 hours of gameplay before you can't return it. So make sure that you like it enough to keep playing it, or return it within that time frame, or wait for another patch or a couple more patches to make sure this game is really optimized for PC. I know console players are having some problems, but not as many, so that might be another option. This is really a game that's meant to be played with a controller anyways. The mouse and keyboard support isn't great either. So things to keep in mind if you're going to be playing this on PC. On consoles, again, I have heard mixed things. Some reviewers have said it runs fine. Others have said it's just not hitting the frame rates that it should be. I'm going to also play this on PS5 and see what I think. I've only played it on PC so far. Beyond that, the only thing that I would say that I have a complaint with that is not performance related is the fact that there are just fewer planets this time around than in Fallen Order. The planets you do get have a lot more going on. There's way more to explore. There's, very intricate and expansive levels within these planets, which is great. But I do miss kind of the variety of going to, I think there was like 9 different planets in that game. And in this, you have 2 major planets and then a few, like there's like a moon, and the game starts in Coruscant. So there are other areas beyond the 2 main planets, but it just doesn't feel like quite as much variety, which can make the game feel oddly smaller, even though it is bigger. So something to keep in mind, but I don't think it diminishes from the game itself, which has really solid puzzles to solve, great characters that you encounter, really just terrific platforming. That's, I think, my favorite part of the game right now, is just being able to get through these levels that are so deep and so well designed for platforming. And a lot of times, it doesn't hold your hand. You don't know exactly where to go. There's not just like a line that you follow. It's not as obscure or opaque as Dark Souls, but it's much, much more unforgiving in that regard than something like, Uncharted, or I'd say Far Cry, or, your typical Ubisoft open world game, where there's always like click on your objective and here's the line that you have to follow to get there. No, this is much more difficult, and it makes you actually use your brain, and I like that. I like actually having to be challenged a little bit, made to think a little bit in a video game like this. So I do recommend it, but I definitely recommend it with caveats in that it may not run that well for you. So consider waiting, or consider just trying it out and seeing what you think. Make sure your drivers are updated. Make sure that you get the game updated. Make sure that you're running, the recommended hardware. It is a demanding game, and you can try different things like turning off ray tracing and other, downgrading the visuals some. That could help. It depends on what resolution you're running your monitor at. And it's not just about your graphics card. Remember, it also has to do with how much RAM you've got, what kind of CPU you've got, and it's PC gaming is complicated, right? Because that's what the resolution you're gaming at is going to determine, which of those components matters more. So keep all that in mind. But this is a demanding game. It does have performance issues, and I wish they'd just taken a few more weeks before they put it out. There was no rush to get this out today, this weekend. They could have released this in June, and it would have been just great. But that's EA for you, man. I guess that's just what we should expect by now. So let me know if you have any questions, comments, thoughts in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe, hit that notification bell, and peace.
Take a look at that view. Is that a giant crater? Wow. I got it so easy. Guard the cliff, crush the locals, look at the scenery. Nobody's getting past me. Not without a blaster hole in him.
Say bye-bye, Baby Yoda. Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.